Well, you listened to the statement of the President of the Security Council. Of course, it was short of expectation. It did not refer specifically to the looming catastrophe over Rafah. And of course, there was no reference to ceasefire. But nevertheless, the effort by almost 14 members of the Security Council is appreciated. Let me also just say that we listened in the debate to the briefing of Christopher Lockyer. It was a moving statement. It affected all those who listened to it, whether inside the Council and outside the Council, and we appreciate the statements and all of the work of Doctors Without Borders and all humanitarian organizations on the ground, led by UNRWA and the brave ones, the 13,000 brave ones, staff of UNRWA, which is basically, if not the only, the main organization that is capable of carrying the decisions and resolutions of the Security Council and the international community to transfer humanitarian assistance to every corner inside the Gaza Strip, north, south, east, and west. We appreciate the work of all of these agencies led by UNRWA, which is indispensable, and it should be protected and it should be funded. Yesterday, after the veto, I said to you we will have an Arab group meeting at the level of ambassadors, which we did. And we came to the conclusions after 140 days in which a single member in the Security Council refused to accept the call of hundreds of millions in the streets in every corner of the globe, and almost all members of the Security Council, other than that one, and the huge number in the General Assembly and beyond. Therefore, what we discussed, business as usual, is not going to be the order of the day for us moving forward. And also bearing in mind the decision by the Israeli Knesset a day or 2 days ago by 99 members denying the Palestinian people their natural and legal right of statehood as part of exercising self-determination, in which not Israel, not anyone will deal with that issue except the Palestinian people themselves in exercising part of their right to self-determination. It's only us, the Palestinian people, who will determine our right to self-determination, including the independence of our state. We will not negotiate that principle with anyone, and we will not ask for permission from anyone to do so. We will not be the exception to the rule. All nations that exercise their right to self-determination to put an end to colonialism did it only alone, without asking for permission from anyone or negotiating that principle with anyone. It goes back even all the way to 1776, when the 13 colonies decided to become independent. They did not negotiate that with the colonial power England, nor they asked for permission from them. As it was done by the United States, it will be done by the Palestinian people likewise. But having all these things in mind, we will expedite the process of one in the General Assembly of asking the international community to take practical measures to force Israel and those who are shielding it to stop the fighting immediately. Practical measures such as, but not only that, to ask countries not to send or sell weapons and ammunition to Israel, to ask countries not to give visas to the settlers' communities and the settlers, not only for settlers to have sanctions against them, and other measures that I am not at liberty to share with you now in the General Assembly, but there will be a host of practical measures that we will start advocating for them. And when we legislate soon in the General Assembly, a new resolution, it will contain, beside calling for a ceasefire, these practical measures, because the occupying authority that is defying everyone, defying international law, defying the ICJ by refusing to implement the provisional measures that the ICJ asked for, the 6 of them, then that country that behaves in that manner should face consequences in the international community, including in the General Assembly. In the Security Council, the resolution in the Knesset of 2 days ago should be rejected in practical way, and we will begin the process of marching to the Security Council for the admission of the State of Palestine. It was the international community that decided to create 2 states in Palestine since 1947. It is the duty of the international community, along with the Palestinian people, to complete that exercise by admitting the State of Palestine to membership. We began the discussions of such steps. We will intensify these discussions, and we will use a variety of things, including we might have a statement and solicit signature from member states welcoming and supporting the admission of the State of Palestine to membership before, in fact, going to the Security Council and to submit a resolution calling for recommendation to admit the State of Palestine to the membership of the United Nations. In the General Assembly, most likely we will hear a debate in the Security Council soon about why a veto was casted, and also in the same time we will be mobilizing for the practical measures that should be adopted. And then when we move to the point of resuming the 10th emergency session and producing a resolution, it will contain some of the element of what was vetoed, but the practical measures also will be reflected in them. Now we are entering a different stage than the 140 days, going to the Security Council veto, going to the resumed session and voting on the same resolution, and Israel and who is shielding Israel are not changing the course. Perhaps this different approach might increase the pressure on them and to force them to accept to have a ceasefire in place before this looming catastrophe over Rafah from happening. We were hoping that the Security Council, in that press release or statement that they read to you, that to include the position that was reflected unanimously inside the chamber of warning Israel from not taking steps in the direction of Rafah, to be included in that press statement. Unfortunately, it was not. We regret that, but nevertheless, we have to do what we should do. It is different than what we've been doing so far in order to save Rafah from that looming catastrophe and in order to have a ceasefire in place immediately, because only ceasefire would allow for all these things to happen. Thank you. If you have questions, I'll be happy. Edith, and then you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. A couple of follow-ups. First, is there any you seem to indicate a timeline of this new resolution in the General Assembly for after the U.S. Is required to appear before the GA to defend its veto. Is that correct, and will it happen soon after? And in this new effort to go and get support for full Palestinian membership of the United Nations. How long a process do you envision for that? And in your eyes, is the U.S. resolution that was circulated a few days ago, is it alive? Is it negotiable? Is it dead?
I'll start from the last one. I think that the United States were forced to put something on the table which is a signal of changing course from waiting until the diplomatic parallel effort, including Egypt, Qatar, United States, and Israel, to produce an agreement on the exchange of prisoners, hostages, and so on and so forth. It seems now they are changing that course because of the massive pressure on them from everyone, including the 14 members of their colleagues in the Security Council. That is the signal. And perhaps it could be a signal of trying to gain more time through the negotiation in that text, with the hope of seeing different results of those who are negotiating on the parallel track on the hostages and the prisoners. But be it as it may be, the effort of increasing the pressure has to intensify until the agreement on ceasefire immediately to take place, because everything else is depending on an immediate ceasefire, as you heard from Dr. Christopher, Lockyer, and all other, representative of humanitarian agencies, including the SG. Regarding the other issues, everything will be in parallel at the same time. We will listen to the debate in the Security Council, in the General Assembly, and mobilizing to see the reaction of the larger number of countries in the General Assembly in the direction that I announced measures. Now, it is conceivable that we might, before even reach that, if we feel that it is needed to resume the 10th emergency session, we will. It is not that the 10 days and then the 10th emergency session, it could be that way, but we will be observing everything as things unfold, and we reserve our right to execute any one of them as we see fit and needed. With regard to the admission was triggered now because of the abhorrent decision taken by the Knesset 2 days ago. Our original thinking was to put an end to the war first in order to move into the other files. Since they pushed the envelope now and challenged all of us, instead of obeying the provisional orders from the ICJ, they are going further of denying us the right to exercise our self-determination, including our right to statehood. Since they are trying to negate it completely, then it became obvious that we have to increase the speed of moving in that direction, and we will begin by the preparatory steps very soon in mobilizing the largest number of countries advocating and supporting the admission of the State of Palestine to membership. All these things will be together, and you will see, that the waves, the political waves containing them as they unfold as quickly as possible. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification on that, and then I have another question. So the automatic Liechtenstein veto thing is 10 working days, so that takes us to the week of March 4th. You're saying that the GA will schedule that automatically, but if there are events before that, you may call the special emergency session before that, depending on events.
Yes.
Okay, understood. And in terms of the GA and your plans for membership and going to the Security Council, would you call for a vote in the GA to show that, you said statements, will you call for a vote in the GA to show the strength of feeling in the wider membership that Palestine should be a member, or is it just individual country statements? How would that work?
It depends on the timing, but what we might take is to possibly develop a statement and to start seeking signatures of member states to endorse that statement, calling for admission of the State of Palestine to the United Nations. If you remember one time, one of our resolutions in the Security Council, we asked for co-sponsorship from the membership from outside the Security Council, and if I am not mistaken, we crossed the 100 co-sponsorship as a form of maximizing the pressure and the preparation and the support for what will take place later on. So all these things are on the table for us to consider moving at them at the same time. And if we move to a General Assembly resolution, not within the before the 10 days, if we need to, we might reflect that idea as well in that resolution.
Ambassador, just quickly on the Security Council statement that you saw the President read with the other representatives here. As you say, it did not mention Rafah. Do you know why it did not mention Rafah? Do you know which member was opposed to that? Because, of course, the US, in their new resolution in OP3, they say Rafah offensive should not proceed. So I'm interested if it was the US that objected to that being in the statement, given the US does have that position in their draft resolution.
I don't know, but I was expecting from you to ask that appropriate question to the President of the Security Council. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador. The President of Brazil recently compared what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza or what the Jews suffered by the Nazis and Hitler. What do you think about that comparison?
Well, I did not, I was not in that meeting. I did not hear that statement, but I have the full admiration and respect to President Lula, who is very supportive to the cause of the Palestinian people. Let me just say a few things in Arabic. نعبر عن يعني اعتراضنا وعدم ارتياحنا على هذه الرسالة التي قرأتها رئيسة مجلس الأمن البيان الصحفي نيابة عنهم لعدة أسباب، من ضمنها عدم التطرق إلى تحذير إسرائيل من عدم الإقدام على الهجوم على رفح والخطر من التهجير القسري ل1.5 مليون فلسطيني في رفح إلى سيناء، حيث أن هناك إجماع في مجلس الأمن حول هذه المسألة، لكن ذلك لم يتم. بالرغم من ذلك حصل اجتماع مهم للسفراء العرب البارحة بعد الظهر بعد الفيتو الأمريكي لمشروع القرار الذي يدعو إلى وقف إطلاق نار والذي قدمته مشكورة الجزائر، وتم هناك تبادل الأفكار الأولية على ضرورة اتخاذ خطوات مختلفة ذات طبيعة عملية عما أقدمنا عليه حتى الآن في 140 يوما في محاولات مضنية في مجلس الأمن والجمعية العامة لوقف إطلاق النار، ولكن هناك عضوا في مجلس الأمن لم يستجب إلى هذا الطلب بعد. لذلك سنقدم في مسعانا في الجمعية العامة ليس على اعتماد القرار الذي عطل في مجلس الأمن فقط، وإنما سنضيف عليه مسائل عملية عديدة من نمط دعوة الدول إلى عدم بيع أسلحة وتسليح إسرائيل وإمدادها بالذخيرة، من نمط أن التعامل مع المستوطنين دون إعطاء أي منهم تأشيرات سفر لأي دولة، وليس اتخاذ خطوات عقابية ضد 4 أعضاء من المستوطنين كما فعلت بعض الدول، وخطوات عملية أخرى ندرسها وسنعكسها بشكل ملموس في مشروع القرار الجديد الذي سنقدم عليه في الأيام القليلة القادمة. بالإضافة إلى ذلك، ونظراً لما أقدمت عليه سلطة الاحتلال الإسرائيلي في الكنيست قبل يوم أو يومين من التصويت ب99 صوتاً ضد الدولة الفلسطينية، الأمر الذي نرفضه بشكل كامل، لأن الدولة الفلسطينية كتعبير عن جزء من حقنا في تقرير المصير، نحن الشعب الفلسطيني، هذا ليس مطروح لا للمفاوضات ولا لإذن من أحد. هذا حق حصري وطبيعي وقانوني للشعب الفلسطيني في ممارسته لوحدهم، وليست إسرائيل أو غيرها هم الذين يعطون إذنا أو توقيتا عن متى ممكن أن نمارسه. لن نكون الاستثناء. كل الدول التي ناضلت ضد الاستعمار والكولونياليزم وأنجزت استقلالها مارست حقها في تقرير مصيرها لوحدها حصريا، وليس بطلب إذن من أحد أو التفاوض مع أحد بشأنه. وكونهم أقدموا على هذه الخطوة فإن ذلك سيسرع من خطواتنا تنفيذا لقرار القمة العربي والإسلامي وقرار قمة عدم الانحياز الأخير، والدعم الواسع من دول أخرى في التقدم إلى مجلس الأمن في مسألة العضوية الكاملة لدولة فلسطين بأسرع وقت ممكن. وربما نقدم في هذا الصدد على خطوات جديدة من نمط تحضير عريضة نجمع عليها تواقيع من عدد كبير من الأعضاء في الأمم المتحدة معلنين تأييدهم للعضوية الكاملة لدولة فلسطين، قبل أن نتقدم في الأيام القليلة القادمة لمجلس الأمن بطلب العضوية الكاملة لدولة فلسطين. هذا موقف معلن للقيادة الفلسطينية والشعب الفلسطيني منذ زمن، ومتروك لنا تحديد التوقيت له. التوقيت له الآن أصبح وارداً بعد الخطوة سيئة الصيت والسمعة التي أقدمت عليها الكنيست الإسرائيلي، ونطلب من المجتمع الدولي أن يؤيد طلبنا انسجاماً مع الإجماع الدولي حول حق الدولتين. وشكراً.
سؤال سريع، هل عندك أي تعليق بالنسبة لمشروع القرار اللي وزعه الطرف الأمريكي على حيثيات هذا المشروع؟ وكذلك أنتم تحدثتم عن مشروع قرار في الجمعية العامة والتقدم بطلب لمجلس الأمن، هل هنالك إطار زمني محدد لهذه الأمور؟
كل هذه الأمور ستتم في الأيام والأسابيع القليلة القادمة. بالنسبة للمشروع الأمريكي، إذا هم جديين في وقف إطلاق النار لحتى 6 أسابيع، فلا يحملوا هذا المشروع ما لا يمكن أن يحمله، وخاصة أن موقف دول 14 طوال 140 يوم الماضية معروف إزاء المسائل التي يريد الطرف الأمريكي أن يفرضها. فإن هم جديون فيقصروها على وقف إطلاق النار للفترة الزمنية التي يريدوها، ويسمحوا لنفسهم وللآخرين الذين يتفاوضوا معهم بشأن الصفقة أن تتم الصفقة في فترة وقف إطلاق النار إن كانوا جديين. ولكن إن أرادوا أن يكسبوا الوقت بطريقة مختلفة بعد أن وصلت الضغوط عليهم ذروتها والغضب من زملائهم في مجلس الأمن من تعطيل مجلس الأمن بسبب سوء استعمال الفيتو من قبلهم، فأعتقد أن هذه المراوغة أو الحركة الجديدة لن يكتب لها النجاح إن كانوا جديين في وقف إطلاق نار لمدة 6 أسابيع ليركزوا على هذه المسألة بشكل أساسي ويتناقشوا بشكل جدي مع زملائهم حولها، أو أن يفرضوها على إسرائيل بشكل أحادي الجانب وتصبح وقف إطلاق النار ل6 أسابيع شيئا قائما على الأرض. شكرا.